Hello, everyone. Welcome to day 2 of the Hope Challenge. I am Tammy Gustafson. I'm the founder and executive director of Live Free Counseling here in Castle Rock, Colorado. I'm also a life coach, and I am your host for this week. And so I am very honored to be able to share this time with you. And as we get going, this is one of my favorite parts. I love to touch base and see where everyone is from. So go to the chat box, and I love to have you put in not only like, where are you from? Are you from Colorado? Are you from out of town? We have people from all over the country. So tell me, where are you from? And then also, are you new to the Hope Challenge, or were you with us yesterday as well? So I'd love to have you chat or put in the chat box. Where's everyone from today? So I see Seattle, new, Colorado, day 2, awesome, Hawaii, awesome, welcome. Was here yesterday, Texas, yesterday was here too, Colorado, Larkspur, love it. That's fantastic, good. So we have a lot of people who are new and a lot of people who were here yesterday. So fantastic. I'm so glad you're here. So I want to take a minute and just speak to the people who are new. Let me give you just a real quick kind of overview and rundown of where we are. So yesterday we talked about marriage. And so the replay for everyone is available till 10 p.m. tonight. So check your inbox if you haven't seen that. And for those who are new, our goal over this week for the Hope Challenge is to serve. So we have some really fantastic therapists and coaches who are coming and speaking about these various topics. So today is family life and parenting, as I'm sure you know. Tomorrow is speaking to single parents or parents who are co-parenting and the unique struggles and challenges with that. Thursday is sexual integrity, and the topic for Friday is trauma. So each day it's here, 2 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. And the replays will be emailed out after every session. So, and those will be available for 24 hours. There is an option to purchase after that. You can get all 5 talks for $47. There'll be details that in the email that I'll send out later today. So the hope piece of this, in a review for some, but the Hope Challenge, the thing we really want to dive into is that this period of life, gosh, it is crazy, right? Everybody uses the words unprecedented times, and that is certainly the case. So what we want to do is we want to lean into hope. Like, how can we use this time to evaluate our life in all these different areas? And how can we make shifts and changes to move forward? So we're going to help with the hope by we're going to validate you. You are going to know you are not crazy. Clinton today is going to talk to you parents, which is fantastic, because now that we're homeschooling and the kids are home all the time, if they're little, like, we all need that validation. We're going to provide tools and also just that space and some homework to help you make those shifts. So today, day 2, family life and parenting, and you guys are in for a real special treat. So Clinton Nunnally, he was the co-founder of Foundations Family Counseling in Denver, is going to speak today. And Clinton absolutely loves what he does. He works with older adolescents, individual adults, couples, parents, and families, and he dives into issues around anxiety and trauma, relationships, family life, spirituality, and sexuality. And with a background consisting of public school education, early childhood development, work with adolescent youth and their parents, graduate school education and clinical training, public speaking, clinical therapeutic practice, and practical relationship experience stemming from years of life-giving partnership with his wife. He's also the father of 2 really fun boys. Clinton offers a unique, integrative style that draws from that diversity of his experience. So I want to introduce you guys to Clinton Nunnally. We'll give him a second to log on here or to show up on the screen. Hi, Clinton.
Am I coming through?
You are coming through loud and clear.
Hey,
Welcome to the Hope Challenge.
thanks so much. I'm so glad to be here. Super
Awesome.
excited. And there's a ton of reason for hope. I just love the whole idea of like there's so much to be taken from this time right now. Yes, it's unique. Yes, it's unprecedented, but this is the time to listen. This is the time to kind of go, there's something going on here and there's a ton to learn. And are we going to be willing to learn it?
Yes.
Or are we going to be amnesiacs like we so oftentimes are?
Well, and isn't it amazing? And I'm sure, Clinton, you've seen this too, but I am amazed at the kindness and the generosity right now that is coming from the situation. It's so beautiful. It's so beautiful to see that.
It's everywhere. And at a time, and we'll probably talk about this some, but at a time when relationships are, strained for various reasons, either you're in close quarters with each other or you're distanced from each other. I just see people coming together in relationship in so many different ways. How interesting that in a time where relationships are strained, we're seeing just how important relationships are, and we're moving toward them. It's fascinating. Yeah,
absolutely. So, Clinton, I love to have you see, you work a lot with families. You work a lot with adolescents and kids, with couples as well. So what are things that you are seeing right now in your practice with this family life and parenting emphasis? What are the unique challenges that you're seeing come up right now?
Totally. And it's not only as a clinician, but it's also my wife is an elementary school educator for 18 years, and so she teaches third grade. My two sons, 9 and 13, ages, not names, they are at home, obviously distance learning, and so we're living this.
Yeah.
And then, yes, there's what I see in my practice. And then there's, of course, what I talk about with just friends and family around. And everyone's kind of experiencing really similar things. But it is not true that everybody is just leveled by this. People are doing all kinds of interesting things during this time and responding to these unique challenges. And so we can learn from each other and all of this. But I think there's a ton of unique challenges now. They're unique to the time. They're not unique to each family. Most people are experiencing something like this. But, obviously the biggest one is managing kids' education while working from home. And when I say working from home, I don't just mean if you have a job outside of the house and having to work, either you're still going into the office or you're working from home. I'm also talking about those who have always worked as household managers or whatever. That is still work. And so you are still working at home and managing your kids, education, trying to support them. And so there's that funny thing about what's my role? I'm their parent. I'm not their teacher. I want to support them in their education. But where do I slip into that role of teacher? When do I not? How do I make sure that being a parent is the thing that rides over everything? And that's got some complication to it,
So, Clinton, can you speak a little bit more about that? Because I think there's really that temptation that, we have 4 kids at home that we're trying to stop as well. And there's that temptation to get really intense about it of like, oh, did you get your homework done? And so I think a lot of parents feel that weight of like, oh my gosh, now I'm supposed to perform in this area that I don't even know why I'm supposed to do it. And it can create a lot of tension within the family dynamics.
Oh yeah. How far do I push? What do I let go of? And then there's like this, there's this like dual guilt that's happening. What's the word I'm looking for? Kind of like a double bind of guilt that happens, where it's like if I'm pushing really hard, I feel guilty about how that goes because it oftentimes doesn't go well. But if I lay off, then oh my gosh, I'm just increasing the educational holes, or the holes in learning that may be developing during this time. And so, yeah, people are really concerned about how to manage that. And I think it's important to ask questions like, well, what is most important educationally? Which we can talk about, and what about kids who are less independent at home versus school? School provides a particular environment and structure where some kids have a really easy time being focused, or they're able to pull together and be really focused. And then at home, because it's their home environment, they don't do that as well. Kai is a perfect example. My 9-year-old, he cannot sit still at home. You would think he was like ADHD or something, but at school, absolute focus. So it's really challenging to get him to focus at home because it's not the school environment. And so there ends up being all this pressure. What's most important? How do I get my kiddo to focus? How do I support them without it going bad? How do I deal with reactivity and resistance? But we can approach answers to all of that. I mean, we can begin to play around with. I mean, there's things to play around with there. Or we could, and we'll get to that, but those are very real challenges, The other thing I think that's happening a lot right now is that, so we're always used to dealing with some degree of like tough behaviors and stress, but it's all just like been put into like a very compressed, constricted space.
Yes.
And so now what we've got is like the pressure of like, how do we manage all this? And then we've got like, how do we deal with these tough behaviors when we're around them more and interacting with them more? What about the sensory overload? I mean, adult minds don't deal very well sometimes when they're regularly, consistently surrounded by a mind that thinks really differently, as children's minds do. They're less linear. They're more creative. They don't think as much in the box. And all of that can really create a lot of sensory overload for us because we're used to compartmentalization. They don't compartmentalize. And so this really creates more sensory overload than we would typically deal with in a day because our kiddos are around all the time. And what's really hard for me to hear, what were you going to say?
Oh, just absolutely.
Yeah.
I totally agree with that.
Even last night, so we were on a bike ride. You know how you get out just to go to like a different scenery? We got out and went to like another neighborhood to take a walk in that neighborhood. And ran into one of Betsy's students and and his kids. And this kind of is hard for me. You hear this all the time, like, can't wait for the kids to be back in school. I wasn't meant for this. I'm the worst teacher in the world to them, and they're terrible students with me. And it's all really negative, right? Because they're in sensory overload all the time, and they don't know how to resource themselves with sensory overload. But it ends up going to this very negative place of like, could the kids just get back in school? And if that is said a lot to kids, the sense is like, I'm not wanted around here.
Yeah.
So we've got to learn how to like deal with that sensory overload, and the stress that is very real, when you're around your kids all the time.
Yeah. So okay, so my mind's going in two directions. One, either what are some thoughts you have about that, or if you want to go more of an overview of what are some other things that you want to touch on. Where would you like to go with that?
Yeah, I'm kind of leaning towards let's just kind of give the overarching, and then we can get into nitty gritty.
Great, love it.
Looking at like how do we manage this stuff. Yeah, I guess the other one I think about is how to structure our days, which you hear it's really kind of cliche at this point. People are like, you need to have structure in your day, right? Which of course is true. We do need structure in our day. But people are asking the question of like, but what's a good structure? What's the best structure for us?
Yeah.
What are we structuring? Are we structuring learning? Are we structuring work? Are we structuring relationship? Are we structuring free time? Are we structuring meals? what are we structuring? Well, we're structuring it all. And I can guarantee you there isn't a right way to structure. So we have to begin to ask really different questions. Like, what's the best structure for me? What's the best structure for this kid versus that kiddo? We have to ask different questions so that we can actually make it work. So like a real perfect example of that is a lot of people are like, you need to start early. You know, you need to get up. You need to start early. We got to keep that same routine that was going on, you know, when they were in school. Not necessarily. Maybe school starts too early. There's some evidence to that. Maybe kiddos need more sleep. Maybe it's okay to actually start our day later. Maybe Kai is more productive in the morning and maybe Jackson's more productive in the afternoon. If we begin to actually stop being cookie cutter about it, we start actually asking questions and getting curious, we might find more interesting answers. And you know how we all have these shoulds hanging out there. Well, it should look like this. Throw the shoulds out. No, there's no way it has to look. It's what's working for you guys. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of expectations on parents in particular to do it right.
Oh,
and
yeah.
a lot of shame to feel that they're not. You know, whatever that should, whatever all that is, I think there's a lot of shame there.
I know. And, you know, when we ask that question, Tammy, about we want to do it right, we're oftentimes talking about things like structure, how much we should allow them to do this versus that. We think of behavior, right?
Yeah.
And when I think of how to do it right, I think about a few really basic things, and which we can talk about more. I think about really basic things like how do we focus primarily, profoundly on the relationships. If I'm interested in doing all of this right, it starts with the basis in nurturing relationship. And there's a ton of neuroscience to back that up. That as we stroke the midbrain, as we stroke the limbic system, which is where our emotions are, and our fear center is, and our memory is, it's our experiential center of our brain. When it gets stroked, we're doing it right. So we ask the wrong question when we say, what's the right way to do it?
Yeah.
So we'll talk
about
that.
Yeah, that changes everything, right?
Oh, yeah.
If you start there, then it makes a lot of things more simple too, because you're not trying to be perfect at everything.
Absolutely. Yeah, we don't need to be perfect. It's not a perfect world. If we're perfect, if we could even do that, we really failed our children, right? Because then where are they going to learn the process of imperfection and repair? So we got to ask the right questions. That's usually a great place to start. Is, are we even asking the right questions? And what are we focusing on? So a few other quick things. I don't know how much time we'll spend on these, but you know, there are some really unique situations out there, like children who have been displaced because of their parents' work schedules or because their parents' type of work, like being in healthcare. There's people who are estranged from their kiddos, right? Academically challenged kids, English language learners. We've got to change our expectations about what's happening with remote learning in these situations. And there's, again, a better question. There's a better thing to be focusing on there, right? But that's a really unique thing that has happened during this time. Social distancing for, you know, children and their families, which is like loss of friends and family interactions and loss of activity in athletic outlets. And we know that for kiddos who athletics is a huge part of their life, it can be almost an identity crisis. And for those who are really in that, you know, graduating seniors.
Oh, yes. That's so brutal.
Yeah. We were talking with family friends yesterday, and their oldest daughter is a graduating senior, and she's devastated.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
No graduation. Not a lot of collection.
I know.
Yeah.
She's being really honest with that. She's like, it's just, it's, and, one parent is really understanding that. And the other one's like, you just got to get over that. And it's like, no, we got to interact with it. We got to deal with it. But that's another, thing that's really happening. That's so unique. I'm wondering, when has that ever happened before? The seniors didn't get those rites of passage.
Oh.
Yeah, really hard. And I think the other biggie that we probably will spend some time on, Tammy, is managing electronics, games, and screen time.
Please, that would be great. That's a struggle for us all.
Mixed messages. We've always really limited your screen time. Now all of a sudden we're like, could you please go watch a movie? And how much is too much? And the double bind of guilt. I feel guilty that they're watching so much screen time, and I feel really guilty taking it away because what else are they supposed to do? And so that's very real right now,
Well, and I know too, for we have some in elementary school, and then our youngest is in preschool, and how to balance all that, how to balance he sees his older siblings on electronics all day long.
Yep.
Or at least all morning long for school and whatnot. And he thinks, well, they're having tech. Why can't I?
That's right.
And those younger ones, I think, are getting left behind a little bit. I know we're struggling with that anyways.
Absolutely. The younger ones would be the ones. I hadn't necessarily thought of that, but it's just a big well, yeah, of course, they're going to struggle more. Remote learning is not best for them. Children that age need to manipulate things in real space and time.
Yeah.
And
kids,
yeah,
that's a thing. Absolutely, a whole different struggle.
Absolutely. So again, we have to ask the question of what is this time about? Because and I need people to know that you're going to hear hints that you could take what I'm saying as you should just throw it all out and not do the school thing during this time. And I'm not saying that at all. But what I am saying is that we've got to really decide what's really important during this time. And we can talk about the educational holes, but we're going to have to let some of that be okay.
Mm-hmm.
We just are,
Yeah.
But you're right. That's another question about structuring your days when you've got kids in different grades, different schools with different teachers who have different expectations. And how do you structure that in? So those, and if there's something else you're seeing, Tammy, I'd love to hear from you. But that's kind of my list of at least some of the things that are going on right now.
Yeah, I think that's great. So before we move into the next one, guys, I'm going to pause again. I'm getting a message that some people aren't able to hear me. So I know this was an issue yesterday a little bit as well. Can you guys hear me? Can you put in the chat box if you can hear me okay? Okay, sounds like some can. Great, okay, good. Okay, someone also said if they couldn't hear me, they logged out and logged back in. So that's another option. Okay, great. All right, so Clinton, let's move on to the next one, just of the tools and advice and resources for this time of life and parenting.
Totally. Again, a lot of this is going to be recognizing what's really true versus what we sometimes tend to believe or fear or think about how things work. Like, for instance, how often we forget that children are just natural, organic learners? Children are designed to learn and develop and grow. They are designed to listen to what really lights them up and to put their attention, their focus, and their passion there. So one of the neat things about a time like this is that since the virtual learning is limited, has a limited effectiveness, then why not capitalize on that a little bit and let children really interact with what they love to learn about? And sometimes that can be mixed in with the learning that's happening at school. Let's say there's, they get some choice about something to pick, or maybe you create an alternative assignment for them. And again, I know I could be heard as like saying, don't necessarily do what the teacher is asking, but yeah, sometimes maybe not. You tell a teacher, this made more sense for my kiddo. They absolutely love sea creatures. I'm actually making that the context through which we're doing this other learning that's very similar to the learning you're doing at school. It's okay. So children are natural learners. We've got to we've got to know that, and we can trust it.
Well, and that takes the pressure off too of going, oh my gosh, I got to push them.
Right.
In school, like we can take a step back and trust that their natural curiosity.
That's right.
Is going.
That's right.
To some degree. Yeah, that's beautiful. I don't think I thought about that before.
Yeah. And if we could let our children teach us, now this is just true. Many of the things I'm going to talk about that we're going to probably touch in on today are things that we can always be doing and are just beautiful tools for always. It's just that we're in this unique time where the need for it is so is right in front of us, like all throughout the day, instead of just more at night or late afternoons or after school activities or whatever. It's just that it's concentrated throughout the day. So a lot of this stuff, is stuff that we want to be doing anyway, but let your child teach you. When you see them interested in anything, ask them about it. Even if it's a video game. What do you love about this video game? Show me how it works. Oh my gosh, I totally get why that's fun for you. Just let your child teach you. And I guarantee you they will. I guarantee you they will. There's exceptions to everything. I just mean in general, this is how that's going to go,
That's beautiful too, because you're entering their world.
Totally.
Yeah, love it.
Well, and now that you say that, Tammy, when you think about it, we have, again, this very concentrated time that is our world and our kids' world is colliding in a more concentrated way than it typically does. And the question is always, how do we invite our children into our world? And how do we enter their world? And how do we create a shared world? By the way, reading is one of the best ways to create a shared world. Reading, entertainment, movies, all story, narrative, all of that. One of the best ways to share a world, because those themes of storytelling are universal. They've always been, it's the same story arc in a children's book as it is in a young adolescent novel, as it is in an adult novel. It's always the same story arc. So we have a real nice shared world there, and people are maybe wondering, well, but what does that really look like on a day-to-day basis? Like, how do you actually enter your child's world? Well, it's going to require some other things that we need to talk about, like how you slow things down and how you decrease urgency on things. And, you have to learn to create the space to allow this to happen, which can be really challenging when we're stressed or sensory overload or whatever.
Speak to that piece of decreasing urgency.
Say that again.
Can you talk to that piece of decreasing urgency?
Absolutely. I love to invite people, parents, into the idea that there is really nothing that is going on in front of them that is as urgent as they think it is. Generally speaking. In fact, most often there's nothing urgent at all. We've created the urgency in our minds because we have very linear, structured ideas of what needs to happen next, what needs to happen next, what needs to happen next. And we don't really ask, but what really will happen if that doesn't happen? And this happens with pushback and power struggle and conflict all the time. There's this idea of like, this has to be dealt with right now. My kiddo's not doing math. They're really resisting doing math. They're pretending they don't know the answers. They're saying, I don't know. I don't understand any of it. Did you watch the lesson? I don't get any of it. what we create urgency there. We go, no, we have to like deal with this right now. Why? What happens if we don't? Well, then they won't do it. And then what? Well, then they won't get the grade. Okay, but then what? And we can't reach this end where it's like, well, I don't know what. I just know it feels really urgent. Don't hear me saying that we don't cycle back around and say, let's look at this homework. But in that moment, it's not urgent. We create the urgency.
So how would you speak to parents? Because that what you're saying totally makes sense to me. But what would you say to parents who are like, they're just spinning, or they have their own anxiety, or they have their own things that is causing and driving that urgency? How would you recommend that they slow down? Like, what are things they need to do to slow down?
Yeah. Well, it's so simple. I hesitate to say it because it's it's said all the time, but I don't think hardly anybody actually does it. It's just breathing. And it's finding and you hear it all the time. Just breathe. Just breathe. We just need to learn to take a deep breath. You hear this like every day, right? Take a breath. Take a breath. You got to deep breathe. I don't think many people don't ever actually do this because they don't believe that they have the time to do it. They don't believe it'll really have the impact that it has. Breathing changes your neurology. Breathing changes the structure of your central nervous system and how it responds to stimuli. Breathing is the most powerful thing you can do, but it has to be paired with this idea of like, we have to buy into that. And many people don't. They hear it and they go, yeah, I know breathing's good, but they don't actually buy into it. Breathing in through your nose, full volume, a quick little hold, a full exhalation longer than the in-breath for even just 30 seconds changes your brain. So how do you invite people into like trusting that just is? It's like just true. It's fact. It's not woo-woo,
That's like an experiential learning thing, huh?
Yeah.
Or if they can give it a shot and see.
Yeah. Something that helps with that is if I think really you can almost start though with the cognitive idea, Tammy, of like, what if it can be like a thought experiment? What if there's nothing urgent right now? What if truly all of the urgency is just mine? Pair that with some breathing. Pull back and take an observer viewpoint, where you feel like you pull up and back, where you actually can see a larger field in front of you. Those three things are going to slow you down if you're willing to do it. But there's something that has to drive that though, Tammy, and that's that there's something more important than what's right in front of me. So you have to believe that it's not really urgent. You have to believe that you really can slow down and observe what's going on. And then you have to believe that there's something more important in front of you. It's called relationship. And if anyone's interested, a wonderful TED Talk. Just look up the Harvard study of adult male development, the longest longitudinal study available. And it started as adult male development because it started in 1923 or something like that. I think it's called What Makes a Life. You go on and you find out what they discovered in an 80 to 90 year study of what really matters in life. And you'll have your answer. Somehow.
Okay, so
go ahead.
Say it again. What's the TED Talk?
The TED Talk is, if you'll just go to TED Talks and put in the Harvard study of adult male development, it'll come up. I think it's called What Makes a Life.
Okay. Oh, I'm curious. I'm going to go look it up.
Yeah, it's brilliant and simple. It's brilliant and simple. So we have to learn to figure out what's really important, which is a gift of this COVID situation. It could be forcing all of us to kind of go, so what's really important? So Tammy, cycling back around, that's That's how you learn to decrease urgency. Sounds simple, it is simple, it's not easy, of course, but you have to buy into it. And so my invitation to people is buy into it. I guarantee you over time it's a life changer. Guaranteed. I think it's important to pay attention to the fact that this is not the school environment, it is a home environment. And so we have to let it be a home environment and not try and make it the school environment. It has to be a home environment where learning happens. So again, let's decrease pressure around the idea of making it like school. Kristen Bell, Kristen Bell, the actress, she's married to Dax Shepard. Kristen Bell was talking about how when all this started, she got this beautiful schedule, all color coded, and it looked awesome. And she put it up, and her kids were like, that's overwhelming. No way, we can't do that. I mean, she was trying to make it like school for them. And she realized that she had to pivot. She had to shift. It wasn't working. She gave it to her kids one day and said, this isn't working for us. Tear it up. Okay, what are we going to do? How are we going to create this? So I think we have to treat it. We have to be respectful of what environment we're really in. We're in a home environment where work needs to happen and where learning can happen. And not just learning in school, but learning about life. So let's let it be the environment it is.
Yeah, absolutely.
If people really want to know what's important in education right now, can I just tell you the secret? The basis of all education is reading. If the main thing you're able to accomplish with your kids over the next 3 or 4 weeks before school ends is a lot of reading, you have just benefited them greatly educationally. Children's ability to read and comprehend is the basis of all other education. I wonder what Betsy would be saying right now, my wife. I'm telling you, if some of your kids are only reading, it's okay. I think she'd say I agree with you, but I'm not sure. Maybe not.
We have some friends who are teachers, and one of them posted on Facebook one time just this idea of it's going to be okay.
Oh,
it's going to be okay. And as a teacher, kind of giving permission of saying, it's all right. And you know what? The whole world is going to be a little behind going into the fall. And that's okay. We're teachers. That's what we do, is we help kids learn and catch up and whatnot. So I love that permission of just it's going to be okay. Right. And if you can help them read during this time, beautiful.
That's right. Yeah. In fact, my way of saying that is the whole system has been disrupted. So we're all together in the disruption. There really aren't going to be these educational holes that people are afraid of. That you don't get an educational hole because of 2 months. Now, we do have an extended summer. And again, there can be some loss of knowledge and understanding and skills over the course of a summer. And this is an extended summer in some ways. But that's why teachers will tell you the thing you should be doing with your kids over the summer is reading. So that's my permission giving to the world is just read. Find some new books to read together. Let them read you. Let them see you reading independently. Modeling is everything. If you're not reading and you want them to be reading, that's not going to work unless they naturally love reading.
Yeah.
And I think they need to see you opening a book. I don't think that if you're on a screen, it's confusing, I think. So, not against Kindle. What about scheduling? How do we create a schedule that works, And I think that has everything to do with a flexible structure. Think about how we begin infancy. What do infants need? Flexible scheduling, flexible scheduling, flexible scheduling. It builds both the safety of I know I'm going to get what I need, but it allows for the flexibility so we're not hamstrung when a curveball is thrown us. We need that for the rest of our lives. Flexible structure, flexible scheduling. You know, a really cool one for that? This is like kind of a magic bullet, I think. What would happen if families started asking, what do we want blank to look like? What do we want this week to look like? What do we want tonight to look like? What do we want this weekend to look like? What do we want this vacation to look like when we could take vacations? What do we want this holiday to look like? And everybody gets to speak into that. And what if everybody gets a little bit of what they're wanting? What could that help structure our day? What do we want today to look like? Kai, when would you most like to do your learning today? Okay, well, let's see if we can make that work. Now, if it doesn't work, you go back to the drawing board. I mean, to me, this is like one of the most magic things. I swear to you, my family, we do it every day in some form or fashion. What do we want blank to look like? I think it's powerful.
Well, and that takes a lot of the pressure off the parents too to come up with a artificial schedule. Like we can collaborate.
Yeah.
And it's better for the kids to have input in on that. I really like that.
Well,
and and I think too there's an issue of personality with scheduling as well, where some people love schedules, some people need schedules, some people hate schedules.
Yeah.
You know, so I think that idea of what do you want it to look like too can kind of allow that flexibility to kind of meet everybody.
Absolutely.
So I think that's great.
Well, and even the shifts from a week-to-week basis. Parents who maybe have a heavier week one week, a lighter week another week. You know, some people are way amped up in their jobs, like it's busier than ever, and others are kind of at a standstill, and others are in between. But it allows for the fluctuations of life on a day-to-day basis, and it's so collaborative, and it's power sharing in a way that I think is really, you know, positive and essential. We get to craft this thing together. I mean, relationships are and life are co-created anyway. So we can do that unconsciously, or we can co-create consciously. What if we decide to do it consciously? Like, what do we want to create today? What do we want it to look like? Do you know how empowering that is for us and for our children?
Can you speak a little bit more to that idea of power sharing? Because I think that's a big thing in parenting and family life is the power and dynamics, right?
Sure.
Tell us the benefit. What do you see when power sharing happens?
Yeah. Stepping back just a little bit, I think what power sharing is, of course, the opposite of, or kind of in contrast to power struggles. And what we see in power struggles is they're usually driven by a good intent on the parents' part, which is we want our children to be well-functioning people. And so we kind of think that that well-functioning people thing comes from getting them to do the things they need to do. Of course, that's there. But I think there's something way more primary than that, which is helping them to actually feel empowered and to interact with their own resistances and their own struggles and the own reasons why I don't want to do this right now. And actually creating the conversation around that instead of just, so the intent is good. I want my child to be a really well-functioning person. But if we really think about what goes into creating really well-functioning people and adults, is their ability to feel empowered on their own, to share power with others. And the other piece I'm going to throw in here is nurturance. When they have been nurtured, that opens up the gateways for the prefrontal cortex to be able for us to be able to access our prefrontal cortex, the integrative center of the brain. And so if we are able to combine nurturance with power sharing, we have a much better chance of creating well-functioning children and adults. So power sharing is the avenue to that, of giving children choice, the ability to be self-aware, instead of just saying, why are they saying they don't want to do math? They're just being obstinate. Well, I suppose that sometimes could be true, but I'm just interested in something. There's a thing that's way more interesting to me than why is my kid being obstinate? Obstinate. A way more interesting question to me is, I wonder what they know about their obstinance. What is it about math right now that you're hating, that you don't want to do? And just have the conversation and see if they could teach you something. You don't have to give in to everything. You get to go, well, I know, but we got to find a way to do it. So help me out. What would make this better for you? I know it sounds real pristine. I know people are probably going, oh, come on, it can't look like that. But I guarantee you it can. I promise you, it can look like that. So
it sounds like a core fundamental aspect of parenting, and what you're saying is curiosity and communication.
yeah,
You're getting curious into their world. You're getting curious into what's going on inside of them, why they're doing that, what's going on, what do you want? Getting curious about them.
so that they can get curious about themselves.
Oh, that's huge.
And if they can get curious about themselves, then they're going to be more self-aware, and they're going to be more well-functioning in life because they know the why underneath their own stuff.
Knowing the why is so important.
Yeah.
So important.
I mean, these are, I'm willing to say most of what we're talking about is paradigmatic shifting from what we've been taught. So it might seem, again, really untouchable. It might seem overwhelming to people. But yeah, because these are all paradigmatic shifts.
Yeah. So just for the sake of time, I think there's 100 other topics that would be sad. But as far as shifting to, and I think we've done some of this along the way, but shifting to, okay, this is an opportunity.
Yes.
This time right now, we have this unique opportunity.
Yes.
So as people are listening and they're like, wow, like I hadn't thought about these things, or wow, maybe things have not been going smoothly and I want to shift because I want to lean in more, and I want this time to be a time that we grow as a family. Like I want us to be closer as we go out of this. Like what are some recommendations we have, and maybe even pairing that with the homework, what are some recommendations you have to help people shift?
Great. Is it okay if I just kind of go through a list?
Yeah, just go. Yep.
And then anything you want expanded, we can do that?
Perfect.
Okay. A, B, C, D, E. Okay. A, B, C, D, E. Awareness, which requires slowdowns. Okay. Awareness, boundaries. And by boundaries, I mean that a couple ways. I mean, creating boundaries and structure around what we're doing, when, and in a way that makes sense for each person, right? But also the emotional boundaries of what I need to take on and what I don't need to take on. We take on our children's stuff all the time. We take on their struggle with school. We take on, their resistance to something. We take on their meltdowns as though they have something to do with us. So I'm talking about even emotional boundaries of we don't have to take anything on that isn't ours. That's way bigger than this topic, I know. But so awareness, boundaries, conversation, way more than discipline, way more than consequences. Conversation is a bit of a slower process, but has teeth over time, whereas consequences get worn out. So awareness, boundaries, conversations, depth. That's that mining, that curiosity you were talking about. And then elevate your conversation at the end with empathy. Elevate your kiddo with empathy. Of course you don't want to do this thing. It's hard. I hate doing hard things too. Because we do.
Absolutely.
You know what that makes me think of, Tammy? We think we're so different from children and that children are so different from us. That's absurd. We are so the same. We're so the same. We're like, why do you want to leave the park? I don't understand. You just need to come. Because you don't like leaving a really nice party. Why do you want to leave the park? So awareness, boundaries, conversations, depth, and elevate. Elevate your kiddo with empathy. Elevate the whole situation with empathy. During this time of COVID, life experience is our greatest teacher. And this is one big life experience. That's the education we need right now. In addition to all the rest, lots of people are getting creative. It's not true that families are, I think I said this earlier, it's not true that they're just been leveled by this. Families are doing all kinds of interesting, fun, unique things. Listen to what people are doing and join in. I could go on and on with the different things I see people doing, Observe, create space, slow down. If there's ever a chance to slow down, guys, it's now. For many of us, not for everybody, but for many of us, this is a time to slow down. What are you learning about yourself and your children in all of this? What are you learning about yourself and your children in all of this? There's so much learning for us about how we're responding to this, what we prefer, what we love, what feels important to us. Learn, learn, learn. We already said breathing. What do we want blank to look like? Nobody needs rescuing. Nobody is a victim. Nobody is to blame. There's a ton in all of that, but if you'll just begin to pay attention to that, like, what if nobody needs rescuing? What if my kiddo doesn't need rescuing? How does that shift things? What if nobody's the victim? What if we don't have to blame anybody? Look for each person's resource. Okay, what are they contributing to the family? Look for every member of the family's resource. And I guarantee you, if you look hard enough, everybody's bringing something to this family during this time, and you're seeing it in a more concentrated way. They just bring heartache and pain. No, that is not true. It's not true. Look beyond that,
Yeah.
Look for the learning potential in everything and capture this unique time. Listen to what life is teaching us. Family hours, less scheduled evenings, fewer commitments, meaning and purpose. What's really important? The healing of the earth. Do you know how quickly the earth heals itself when we lay off of it?
Beautiful.
It's beautiful. And then there's a whole spiritual dimension. So capture this unique time and listen to what life is teaching us. It's affording us so much.
Yeah, I love it.
Are those practical enough?
Absolutely. I think that's fantastic. Okay, so
I talk a lot, don't I?
well, that's what you're supposed to do as a speaker. No, that's fantastic. Clinton, I really appreciate you leaning into that. Or you leaning into this and sharing this with us, because it's so like I feel calmer now than at the beginning, just kind of centering down on those, what is really important. And if we're going for relationship, if we're going for understanding, if we're going for a connection, if we decrease the urgency in our life, if we breathe, boy, that just brings everything down and going, oh, there's a whole different way that I can be pursuing this. That may feel a little weird or scary at the beginning because you don't know.
Absolutely.
But beautiful. Beautiful.
You've articulated that really well. Yeah.
Yeah.
It surprises me that you feel calmer at the end of this with all my intensity.
I'm pretty intense too. It doesn't faze me one bit. But I think too, I love the idea of, okay, and maybe one of the challenges too is like, okay, just pick a couple things.
Absolutely.
Pick a couple. and try them.
Absolutely.
And try them out. Talk with your partner if you have a partner you're parenting with.
Absolutely.
And get on the same page, have them listen to this, and then just try a few. And gosh, I'd be really interested to hear the impact of this.
Oh,
so thank you.
Me too. I hope people will listen and do something with it. I think there's a lot that we can do.
So Clinton, if people want to reach out to you, if they want to connect, how can they do that?
Yeah. So Clinton at foundationsfamilycounseling.com. And you can, and I'm on the website, obviously, foundationsfamilycounseling.com. That would be the best way for them to reach me.
Awesome. That sounds great. And you guys you're in Denver, aren't you?
Yeah, downtown. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Wonderful. Clinton, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks so much for having me. I really do appreciate it very, very much. And I love what you're doing, and I hope the rest of the week goes really great.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Take good care.
You too.
Okay. Bye now.
So guys, I'm going to let Clinton sign off here, and we're going to just, we're going to wrap up. Thank you for joining us today. I hope that you can I hope you feel calmer too at the end of this and listening to this. I think Clinton just had some great wisdom and advice. So if you want to go back, or if you want your partner to watch this, to listen to this with you, you will get an email later on today with the replay that you have for those 24 hours. And tomorrow, we're going to be leaning into co-parenting and single parenting. And I'm really excited about this. Lee Dudley with Live Free Counseling is going to lean into this. And this is an area that's not been touched very much. There's not a lot of conversation about this. But for people who are single parents right now, or people who are co-parenting and trying to navigate that, it does create some really unique challenges and situations. So I hope you will join in. And then Thursday is about sexual integrity, and Friday is about trauma. So take care. Bye.